Hi, welcome to the Drama-Free Living Podcast. It's Dennis and Lisa McIntee, and your answer is out there. What do we mean by that?
Are you the answer man?
No, I don't want to be the answer man, but I do think someone somewhere has your answers.
So recognize that you're not alone.
And how many times do we do this as leaders and even in different relationships? I know spouses feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just all alone on an island. Nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. Leaders feel, oh, nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. My team doesn't get me. And the reality is you're not alone. Your answer is always, always out there.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think you can kind of continue to learn from others. And when you're in a relationship with others, it kind of creates this comfort and creativity. Right? You feel like a place where you're understood. And I know, Lisa, for like our roundtable participants, that has been the one thing that they have said. They've said, you know, man, this is a place where I feel normal. This is a place where I feel accepted, where I don't feel judged. Or I don't feel other people being envious. And we know business leaders that they get around other ambitious people and other leaders and they can share their goals and nobody gets jealous about the goal.
Well, it's normal. It's normal to be ambitious. It's normal to be a go-getter. And it's normal to have these tough problems that are unsolvable, but they're all determined to solve them.
And it's almost like the higher you go, the fewer people get you.
Yeah.
It really is true. And so learning to kind of find your tribe and your answers are out there. So listen, if you'd like information about the roundtable, we're launching one. We didn't plan to even talk about this, but we're going to be launching a couple more later this year. And so we'll put a place in the show notes where you can just sign up and register and get an interview and see if it's a good fit for you. Right? Because I think, Lisa, a lot of times people feel like, hey, I'm just out on an island, right? Yeah. Nobody understands me, right? And you feel lonely because, you know, you're not understood. And what's fascinating is you can feel lonely in a crowd.
You can.
You can be around a bunch of people and feel like, nobody really gets me. And so the key is really to have people start to get you. And I think growth, change, development, it's done through relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Every time we go up another level, it's like we need a new relationship. And we said the statement before that you're the sum of the 5 people closest to you. Who you are is the sum of the 5 people closest to you. So if you don't like who you're becoming, the first thing to do is find some different relationships.
Absolutely. And you'll be the same 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the people you'll meet.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think, you know, to go faster, it's like you got to open up and to other people and allow them into the journey and allow them to push you. And that's one thing I know our roundtable does is you're not just accountable to us, but you're accountable to 8, 9 other leaders that are kind of yanking your chain. And when you show up every quarter, you don't want to have the wrong answer. And so I know it really kind of helps you with your growth, but you need some relationships. So you're not in it alone. We don't want you to think, hey, I'm in it alone. You're not, okay? There are other people around you. So Lisa, we just came back from Cancun a couple weeks ago, and it was fascinating just some of the stories from that trip that we heard.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a trip to Cancun. We went to a marriage conference, and it was amazing because we were just having conversations with other people, and it was a very open, transparent environment.
Yeah.
And when we were having these conversations, we had other people, they said, wow, you mean we're not the only ones?
Almost like across the board, that was a common statement that we heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we were talking about a discussion that we had, it's the discussion we talked about a couple podcasts ago about this landscaper coming in for this appointment.
Right.
And the night before we left, and how it caused tension in our relationship, and that we recognized it.
Well, and I thought nobody's having these problems.
Nobody else is having a landscaper come at 4 p.m. before they leave.
Nobody else has turmoil in their relationships. We're the only ones. We really need some help.
Absolutely. And the comment was, wow, we're not the only ones. Or there was another couple, and they had said something about, you know, it's the end of the day and they're going to go out for a restaurant and to get something to eat. And one of them says, well, where do you want to go? And the other one, well, I don't know. Where do you want to go? I'm not sure. What sounds good to you? Well, I don't know what sounds good to you.
It was almost comical.
And it was comical. And then I thought, you know, that actually happens to us.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, that has happened to us, the exact same thing. And so we sat down and we got a piece of paper out and we said, okay, what are some of our 5 different restaurants that we love the most that don't require reservations. So last minute, hey, we want to go get something to eat. Write those down. Okay, what are 5 activities that we could do?
Spur of the moment.
Spur of the moment, anytime, pick up and go. It's not a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
And or what are some of these? What are some of the people that we could get together with? We could just call them up and say, "Hey,
people.
Do you want to get together in an hour and a half?" And
Yeah.
and when we did that, it cut out the possibility of us saying, "Well, what do you want to do?" "Well, I don't know. What do you want to do?" "Gosh, I don't know. I'm kind of tired. What do you want to do?" And it's our cheat sheet to go through. And that was so freeing for this other couple. They thought, oh, we are not the only ones. It's normal. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost like as leaders, when you're leading a team, you need a cheat sheet too.
Absolutely.
You need 5 other leaders that you can call and talk about some of these issues, some of these problems. That's what I love about how we created a roundtable experience is you get a group of 8 people that, they're on speed dial with you, that they get you, they know your business, they know who you are, and you don't feel like you're on an island. You get advice from multiple different sources. And so really creating this cheat sheet of relationships.
Right.
Because every time you go up another level, it's fascinating, Lisa. Every time we have gone up to make another jump, it's always been a relationship.
Yes.
It's something that's helped us think differently, give us a different question to think about, give us a different way to process information. And it was that relationship that kind of pulled us up to that level.
It's that relationship, and then it's an additional skill.
Yeah.
So, and that relationship helped reveal the skill, and then we were able to find a relationship to help build this skill so that we could function successfully at that level.
Yeah, and as we were in this going on this trip, I realized that relationships really put context to your struggle.
They do.
And I think if you're not careful, there's not a context to it. It is partly why we created the trigger identifier. It creates this context for you to understand the context so that you can change the behavior. And listen, we'll put that in the show notes for you, the trigger identifier. We've mentioned it at a couple other podcast episodes, but we want you to have it. It's our gift to you, the trigger identifier. And it's really is this way to kind of put context around your struggles.
Absolutely. It's a way to identify what is really going on here. Here's the situation. What's really going on here? What is happening? And what can I do about it? What do I need to communicate about it? And what is the lie that I'm believing?
Yeah, and it really, once you know the context, because almost like once you know the context, you can change the content.
Yeah.
You can create new content. Once I know the context, then I can create that new content. I can create that new behavior.
Absolutely. Yes. And part of that is that new behavior, that new context, that new understanding is sharing our top 3s.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So this is something that we encourage, within our team, but we also, our roundtable participants, they have these groups of 2-3 people that they're just, it's a subgroup of our roundtable participants, and they text each other either each morning or each night. And they'll say, hey, well, these were my top 3 wins. And
these are my top 3 things I'm going to do today.
And these are my top 3 things I'm going to do today. And the top 3 wins are fascinating, and the top 3 things I'm going to do today are also fascinating. The top 3 things I'm going to do today tend to be a little bit more task-oriented or circumstance-related. But then the top 3 wins, oftentimes there's 1 or 2 things that are put down that are on a personal level.
Yeah.
And one of our roundtable participants shared, hey, this was super helpful for me because I recognized that the other 2 people or the other 3 people that I'm in this text group with, it might not be all about business. Now, our roundtable participants are very highly driven, very successful people in business, but their top 3 is not necessarily strictly focused on business. There are some personal aspects to it. And it might be, I had a great evening with my son, and we were playing out in the backyard. Or I was able to be there for my wife when she was having a tough day. Or it could be, I fired my number 3 guy and it went really well, and now I have potential for growth because we can put a better person in the place. And just because it's your top 3 wins, it doesn't mean that it has to be all business, because sometimes putting those personal things on actually realize, hey, I am not alone. And what's fascinating about this, now Brené Brown, her book, Atlas of the Heart, she's got some really great things to say about vulnerability and authenticity. And she pointed out, and I realized it hit me, this is totally true. Authenticity and vulnerability is the first thing we look for in other people, right?
Okay,
But it's
true.
also the last thing that we want to show.
Ooh, right, because it's scary.
So I want
It's an
authenticity and I want vulnerability from you because I just crave that from you. But that's also the thing that I'm going to lock up the tightest, and I'm not going to show it because the reason for this is when you give your authenticity and your vulnerability, I'm thinking, wow, that is so courageous that you shared that personal thing about you.
Yeah.
But for me, when I give that authenticity and vulnerability, for me, it's complete inadequacy. I'm thinking, wow, I am just less than, and I am inadequate because I have this vulnerability, this area that I'm less than in. And we're afraid to show people that we're transparent and we're vulnerable, but that's the exact people that we're attracted to.
Well, and we really got to flip the switch on this whole authenticity and almost like what it means. Because if it's what I crave
most
from other people, and it's the hardest thing for me to give, right, then kind of flip the switch. And Lisa, I think it goes back to this reciprocity, sowing and reaping idea, the giving and getting, right? Because there is this instinctive reaction in people. When I give you transparency and some authenticity, there is almost this, you almost want to give it back. But as leaders, I think we have to go first.
We do, because we are the ones that set the environment. We are the ones that set the atmosphere as leaders. And we say, okay, I'm being authentic, and I'm being transparent. And I am showing that this is a safe place for transparency. This is a safe place for vulnerability. So you can also step into that.
Well, and it's this idea that people's brains operate best in a place of safety, in psychological safety. And what's fascinating is it just happens automatically. Every environment you walk into, you judge the safety, safe or unsafe. Right. And if you judge it unsafe, you just immediately start to close up. But if you walk into a situation and you judge it safe, it is a lot easier to open up.
Absolutely.
And I think especially as leaders, we have to be very careful about this whole idea of like almost like judging other people. People say things and it really kind of quenches this comfort and creativity. It kind of quenches this safe place.
Yeah.
And really sort of having a coachable mindset as we're working with people and people are working with us. And it kind of sets the stage for comfort and creativity. If we want teams to be more creative, they're going to have to be more transparent. And if they're going to have to be more transparent, they're going to have more safety. And if they're going to have more safety, that's our job as leaders, is to create this culture of safety that really fuels creativity.
Right.
And many times people, they don't want to say the wrong thing, or they want to say a bad idea because they're afraid, oh, I'm going to get judged by that.
Well, you know what's fascinating is when we're in a group and we've got a whiteboard and we're writing down, okay, let's throw out ideas. And they'll be the most simple, most obvious ideas ever. But the longer we stay in this environment, okay, let's throw out more ideas. We go deeper and deeper until the ideas that are thrown out at the end, they're very thought involved.
Yeah.
And they're very creative. And it's because we made this space and we took the time to create a safe place for idea exchange. And so the ideas that are deep down inside you that you're not sure you want to share, all of a sudden as other people are being transparent and beginning to share ideas that are maybe a little outlandish, you think, oh, my idea maybe is okay too, and it's not so far out there, and it's just an idea exchange. So it's a safe place. Yeah,
it's this fear of being what will people think, or maybe they'll laugh at that, or think that's a stupid idea, or whatever these thoughts that kind of go through your mind. When you feel that, you're going to just hold back. And this is what we've seen with teams, and it's really why I'm so passionate about really creating these creative, collaborative, teams that really have a lot of confidence and really get great results.
Yeah.
But you don't get that if you don't have first this place of safety. And it's why when we work with organizations, it's the first thing we work on. Let's create a culture of safety where the best ideas win, where we can have creativity blossom, where we can be collaborative, right? But you're not collaborative with somebody that you feel judged by.
No.
And so it's this whole idea, Lisa. So I love the top three. The top three really kind of fuel some of this whole idea. And we have our team do it.
We do have our team do it.
Right. So every week, everybody puts in, I put in my top 3, everybody sees everybody else's top 3, and we hold each other accountable to it. It's a great accountability mechanism.
Right. Well, so we do our top 3 every week for this is what my week is going to look like. But when we get together as a team,
We talk about our top 3 wins.
we talk about our wins.
Yeah. And it's this idea of continuing to build confidence so that you step in and are more creative. But you're not creative unless you're first confident.
Yeah.
And you're not confident unless you feel a sense of safety.
Yeah.
So the next idea really when we're in relationship is we've got a tool called the blind spot eliminator.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps you see like your blind spot. And here's what's fascinating about a blind spot is what other people see about you, but you don't see. Now, it doesn't just because you see it doesn't mean it's not there. It's still there, but if you can't see it, you can't change it.
It doesn't to you, it does not exist.
And when we have relationships that can speak into that blind spot, it helps you become more and more aware. And the key to the blind spot eliminator is this idea of feedback, is the giving and getting of feedback. And so many times just one technique we teach leaders is to stop asking, do you have feedback for me? Because most of the time people are going to say no. But if you simply change the equation and say, hey, what feedback do you have for me?
Absolutely. And this goes back to thinking about your definition of the term feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback means what do you have that could help me grow? Because
Like what feeds me?
what feeds me? What is some food that you can give me, some feedback that you can give me to cause me to help me grow in a positive way? Because growth is not negative. A plant doesn't grow because of negative influences. A plant grows from the positive, the nutrients and the food that it gets from the sun or the soil, the nutrients. And we also grow from the nutrients that we get from the feedback we get from each other. So feedback is a positive thing. It's a growth, something for positive growth.
Well, listen, do you remember at the marriage conference in Cancun, one of the exercises that they had us do is what are our strengths as a couple? And we were kind of thinking about it, and I thought, it would be a great question to ask some other couples, hey, when Dennis and Lisa show up, what happens because of us?
When we're in a relationship with you as a couple.
What happens because of us? And we started to use that with leaders as we have leaders go back to their teams and ask them, hey, when I show up in a meeting, what happens because of me? When I show up in an interaction with a client, what happens because of me?
And we utilize this with our team.
Absolutely.
And told each of our members, hey, when you are in this meeting, you are warm, you're welcoming, you're optimistic, you are energetic. And to another team member, when you're in with our team, things keep rolling. We don't have glitches. We are smooth and things don't get dropped. When with another team member, hey, when you're part of this team, you are a high-level thinker. You know how to communicate to our clients, and you stretch us in that area, in that professionalism.
Well, and it's this idea of because a lot of times people say feedback, and there's not a positive aspect to it. It's what did I do wrong? But feedback is also, hey, this is what you do really well.
Right.
Do that more and more. Hey, how do you create a scenario where you do that over and over again? Because, Lisa, I know it's true. If we said, hey, let's talk about our weaknesses, you and I, we could have hours and hours and hours of podcasts, right? Not a problem.
And hours and hours and hours of stories
that
are not the best.
Because we're so good at rehearsing in our mind, like our deficiencies and inadequacies. But if we turn around and go, hey, what makes you great? A lot of times people are stumped. What do you mean? And typically what makes you great is what other people see as hard, but you think is easy. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes the hard part about that is because it's easy for you, so you think it's easy for everybody.
And we call that your superpower.
Yeah.
Because Superman, for him, flying was easy. Flying was normal. And it didn't take any effort. It was just something he did because he was Superman.
And he probably said, well, what do you mean? Everybody can't fly? Oh, it's easy. You just do this and you fly, right? No, it was his superpower. And so I think that's where we need relationships that'll call that out and go, hey, this is really what you do amazing. And then start to build your team around this superpower, whatever that looks like. And almost like build your job around your superpower. in, that thing that you do easily that maybe other people think is hard, because that's where you provide the value. Mm-hmm. It's in the difference that you make, not in how similar you are to other people.
Absolutely.
So this whole idea of blind spot eliminator is continuing giving and get feedback. And you do that in relationship.
Yes, you do.
You don't get feedback from somebody who doesn't know you. If I don't know your behavior, I can't give you feedback.
You have to have
If I don't know your outcomes, I can't give you feedback.
Right. You have to have had some interaction at some level. It could be a one-time face-to-face or one-time phone call interaction. Hey, would you mind staying on this line to give feedback on this call?
Yeah.
To rate this call. And that was just a simple interaction. Or you can have deeper relationships and get deeper feedback on how you show up and what makes you great.
Yeah, and so recognizing really that you're not alone. And then I think another big one that really is I've been working on is this whole idea of comparison and competition.
Yes.
Right? Because when I compete with you, I can't coach you. If I'm in competition with you, I can't be a coach to you. When I'm in comparison with you, I can't really help you. Right? I enter into this place of like judgment and enter this place of envy or all these different things. And gosh, I think social media is sort of like the big, detractor from this a little bit. And so this whole idea of you have to be very careful that you don't judge your insides by other people's outsides.
Absolutely.
Because, you go out on social media and you see, oh, I did this and this happened, but you're judging yourself because only you know your experience, what you're experiencing. Right? And people always put this great experience out there. And I think just stepping back and realizing, hey, you got to mind your own business. All right? Your business is on the inside of you. Mind that business and stop worrying about what other people do.
Yeah. It was fascinating because you can be in a situation and show people the best of the best. We were just in New York this last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a fantastic time.
Yep.
And we did all of these wonderful things, and it rained, and we were like wet dogs the entire time and soaking wet and had to dry ourselves out, and our hands were cold and our feet were wet. But yet we had a fantastic time.
Yeah.
And knowing, oh, wow, they went to New York and here's all these amazing things. Or, oh, wow, they went to New York and look at how soaking wet they were.
Right.
And how cold they were. And
it's the same experience, two different perceptions of it.
And they're both true.
Yeah.
They're both true. The fantastic time and seeing all the great things and the being wet dogs and soaked and cold was also true. And that's what makes the fullness of an environment and a situation. Just like happy and sad can coexist in the same thing. It makes our wonderful things more wonderful and our difficult things more difficult, and bringing them together makes a full life rather than a flatline life.
That's really good. And I think the whole idea of this being in a relationship is really determining the expertise of the others around you.
Yes.
And realize like you can learn from everyone. Mm-hmm. And some people you learn what not to do, other people you learn what to do. But I think everybody has an expertise, and really defining what that expertise is. At least I think about the couple that went with us to Cancun. I mean, they're much younger than us, but what I really learned from them is they're very open and welcoming. And I think, okay, Dennis and Lisa, we need to be more opening and welcoming because those guys are just amazing at it. You can sit with them for 5 minutes and you feel like they're like your best friends. And everybody loved them. And I think sometimes, not everybody loves us, right?
But what's fascinating is that's your perspective. But at the same time, I heard a phrase recently, and it's, if you spot it, you got it. So oftentimes we hear that phrase of, okay, that person's really critical, that person is angry, and the phrase is, well, gosh, if you recognize that in another person, then that's probably a deficit that you have. And we've heard that before.
Yeah,
that's a very common thing.
Yeah.
But the opposite of that is, if you spot it, you got it, meaning if you meet someone and their smile is just really nice and they seem happy and they seem joyful, well, the whole idea that you spotted that and you recognized it in that person means that that's an aspect that's within you that you actually exude and you don't even know you exude.
I love it. That's super encouraging for me.
Absolutely. And realizing that, hey, I realize if I spot in you your creativity and your strategy, that means because I'm able to see it in you,
Yeah.
I have that in me. And I can celebrate that rather than me just focusing on the negative things and whatever they complain about, whatever bothers you the most about another person is what bothers you about you, and you're actually functioning that. But it's true in the other side.
Wow, that's really awesome. And I think if you're stuck in this, because I think everybody has something to coach you. Everybody has different expertise, and you can learn from everybody. And you want to just continue to have that attitude of a learner. When you step into relationships, have that attitude of a learner. But if I'm trying to compete with you, I can't be coached by you. I can't learn from you because I'm trying to compete with you. And it's this whole idea of competition and comparison. It's sort of the killer of relationships.
Absolutely. I think of when we are playing euchre as a family.
Uh-oh.
And euchre is teams of two.
It can be a cutthroat game in certain
It can be a cutthroat game in certain families.
We don't know which family that is, but we know a family.
We know a family. That would be Dennis's family.
Yes. We're asking for a friend.
And you're each on a team. You've got two teams of two. And for Dennis, for you to try to look at my cards, being on the other team, I would feel very angry. I would feel that you are cheating. I would feel that you are trying to get the upper hand.
Hey, but if you show them to me.
If you look, even when I accidentally show them to you,
right? Yeah.
Then that is not a collaborative environment. That is a competitive environment. But
euchre is not a collaborative environment for us.
Sometimes we have groups together. So maybe you and I are playing cards together, that hand together, because we've got so many people and we have a couple people looking on or someone else is trying to learn. And then it's, okay, these are my cards, see my bowers, and okay, now watch what they're playing and which cards should I play. And it's extremely collaborative because we're not in competition. We're not in competition with each other. We're not trying to compare. We're actually in this together to win the game and beat you.
Well, and I think it'll bring a lot more peace, right? If you're collaborative, it's going to bring a lot more peace. So this whole idea of you're not alone, right? We're in relationships. Relationships are all around you. Lisa, for you, what's a takeaway from this? I think this whole idea. I think we need to go back for me and continue to ask, hey, when I show up here, what happens because of me? Hey, I'm in this relationship. Hey, give me some feedback. What happens because of me? Go back to the team, go back to clients, go back to other relationships that I haven't, and maybe get some better feedback. I think I'm going to do that over the next couple weeks.
I love that. For me, my takeaway is when I see things in other people, I've always been taught that means that those are things that are in me and that's something that I need to work on. But I had never been taught the idea of if I see something positive in another person, like, wow, they are so warm and welcoming, that also means that is something within me that I really need to celebrate. And I can grow and I can recognize that that's something in me and I want to focus on that and make that part of my life bigger. And it's just as valid.
I love it. Listen, thank you for joining us on the Drama-Free Living podcast. We're going to put the trigger identifier in the show notes. Download it. It's our gift to you. And we'll see you next time on the Drama-Free Living podcast.